Hey everybody, how you doing? Lars here again. Going to talk a little bit about strings and a little bit about lists tonight. This is the review of the first half of the Unit 2 slides. And I always say this is going to be quick, and I always seem to ramble on for the same 17 to 18 minute time period. So today I'm actually going to try to be quick and go through it. I'm going to go through strings. I already got some code ready for us, and I'm going to just show you that in action. And then I'm going to show you some things about lists, and then after that I'm going to speak about one tiny thing that came up in the forums, and then hopefully we can get out of here in a decent amount of time, maybe 10 minutes this time, who knows. Let's see, I'm going to open this file up that I prepared for us. U2 code, called it Scratch, and there it is. Okay. So, Unit 2, the first half of Unit 2, we're talking about two data structures in Python that we call sequences. And sequences are things that can be accessed with indexes or indices. And I'm going to start by just showing you this code and running it. And then we are going to look at it together. So the first thing I do is I create a string called myString, or myStr equals the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. Was it Rex Harrison? Eliza Doolittle? I forget the name of the movie. My Fair Lady. Anyway, I use that for my string because it's long and we can do some things with it. And then I basically here on the side go down the different things we can do with strings. I believe we saw a little bit of this in Unit 1 where you can print the length of the string, and in this case I print the length and it's 43. Then we can access the characters, chars is short for characters, with their indices, and you can see I take my string and in brackets I say give me the 5th element, but what I'm really getting is the 6th element, because remember we start counting with 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so the 6th element is an A, and if we come up here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it is indeed an A. Now we can also access parts of a string by doing something called slicing, and similar to some of the other indices we looked at, this is inclusive. You want to start at the 5th or the 6th item because we start at 0, and this is exclusive. The 15th item is the first one we will not get. So the 15 is exclusive. So we're basically going to be printing 5 through 14 when we print this, and that's where you get the ein and spa, that slice of that. So you can use arithmetic and slice. You can put variables in here. You don't have to put numbers in here. You can put variables in there. And you can get bits and pieces of your string by using the slicing, and I show that. I wanted to show an out-of-bounds error. I believe 42 is fine, and that's what that n is. It just prints the last item. But if I were to change that, you see I would get an error, because you have to be careful. You have a string of length 43, and remembering the 0, you are asking for the 44th element of it. That's no-no. You've gone out of bounds or out of range with that string because it isn't that long. So just to keep us sane, I'm going to make that 42. You can also use math as well as variables in your indices. Here I print my string 9. In both cases, I use different kinds of math, and that's what gives me the 2 i's over here. Strings also have methods. Methods, as I said really quickly, are just functions or different procedures that you can run on your strings, and you're going to understand a lot more about this when we start talking about classes and the different way you can set up functions just to run with certain data in your objects. But just for example purposes, I did my string upper, where it took the entire string and printed it in uppercase. Now, that does not keep the entire string in uppercase from then on. It just prints it in uppercase. If I wanted to change the string to uppercase, I would have to reset the variable. And as you should know, you can't really do that with strings because they're not mutable. They're what's called immutable. And I'll show that a little bit down later when we talk about lists, because lists are immutable. So now here I use the replace method. And I just replaced the word Spain with France, and you can see how that works right there because I printed in that line right there. And I can also use the count, which sometimes comes in handy. Sometimes your strings aren't necessarily words or phrases. Sometimes they're either X's or zeros if you want to keep score for something. And then if you want to go count the X's, the count method comes in very handy. So I just counted the ends. Turns out there's 6 of them. If you come up here and you look, you'll see that there are 6 ends in the string. So that's the basics of strings. I'm going over that a little quickly because we move on from strings. They're a legitimate sequence, and as you see, when we do loops, we can iterate through them. But you've seen them before, and that's basically the simple parts of strings, and I wanted you to be able to see them in action. And I take this code and I'll put it up in resources for us. Now I also created, hey, some list code down here. Did I do anything else? No, I didn't. I didn't think so. Lists are different than strings. You can see I create a list here called my list, and I just add my name as characters. So we now have a 4-item list, and I'm going to rerun this code so you could see. Dun, 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 dun. What did I do? I always leave the bottom part. Okay. All right, and as you can see, we have our, hold on, let me do this, put that there, put that up there. So now, you can see, we do all the stuff that we did with the strings, but the first thing I do is I create the list. You create the list with commas and put together in brackets. You could also create blank lists and then append to them later. I'll show you that in a moment. But when I print my list, it prints the list like this. It doesn't print it like a string. It prints the list pretty much in the way you created it. Then I can also, like my string, use indexes to access parts of the list. We count at 0, 0, 1, 2, so it should print an R, and it does right down there. Now, the two things that are the main differences between strings and lists are that lists allow you to keep different types in the list. You don't have to have all characters like a string does. You can have an integer, then a float, then a string, then something else. You can even have another list, and we're going to talk about that down the line. You can have a list that is a list of lists, and that list can have a list, and it can go down until it makes your head hurt. So these, in one example, shows the two main differences between lists and strings. One is that they can hold different types, and the other is that they are mutable, which means you can change them, and you can change them on the fly. Here, I have an assignment statement, my list of 2, the R that we printed. I'm going to change it to a 7, and then I'm going to reprint the list. And as you can see, I come down here, LA7S, and there's no problem doing that with Python because lists are mutable. So those are the two main differences, and as you'll see, as we move forward and we go into loops and we do other things, lists are very handy. They're a data structure that are used quite a bit in Python. It's almost like they're the default, and later we're going to learn about other similar data types like sets and the dictionaries that I promised you that we'll probably get to in the next unit. So you'll be able to see things along those lines. That's all there is with lists. Lists are not that complicated. Here, let me, my list 2, you open with a bracket, and you can say anything, 2.33, Mars, 34 again, and just to show off, I'll say my list. So now you can see I created a second list, integer, float, string, another integer, and a list, the original list that we had up here. And you can see the listing, list them out. And you can see the list is an element just like everything else. So lists are neat, lists are very useful, and you're going to see more of that in the coming weeks. So that's the basics of strings and lists. One thing I am going to do, because it came up, and sometimes Mr. Zell makes me crazy, but somebody had a string, let's say str equals, what was it, spam? An exclamation point. And then they use the loop. I know we're going to do loops in the next one, but I'm going to do one real quick here. For ch in str print, and it printed ch, and then it printed end equals, if I am not mistaken. Let's see what that does. Yes. So I believe this was an example in the Zell book. If I were doing this, I would not have put that in there, because that is something new. It's a new wrinkle. It could add confusion. I don't want you to be confused. What this is that with print statements, I can redefine a variable called end in the parameter list and have that be what the print statement ends in. As you could probably guess, if I don't do that, it lists them in a row. The default for print is a new line. So, string is spam. Spam is a sequence, 5 elements, S through exclamation point. 4, ch in string. So the first time through this loop, not a very interesting one, only one command. Ch equals S, the first element. Print ch. It prints it. New line, because it's not defined. And then it goes and does the next one, ch in string, p. So every iteration, it will grab the next item in the list until it's done. And as you can see, it does that here. But if I say, you know what, I don't want a new line, just make the end a space. Then it'll do it all on one line, as you can see there. Another way, I guess to make it simpler, is we can put a separator there. And as you can see now, it does it with separators. So you can always reset what you want the print statement to end with. It doesn't have to end with a new line. And that came up in the forums, and I figured I'd let you know about it really quick. Even though I'm cheating and I'm going to the second half of the unit slides by showing you a loop, it's not so bad. All right, again, I have no idea how long I've gone because I never look down at the clock and see what's going on. But I wanted to do this video, get it out to you, let you get a look at it. Later on in the week, I'm going to do the second review video. Hopefully I'll have that up for you Friday night so that you can use the weekend to have all of your study materials, the slides, the readings, the 2 review videos. Tomorrow night, Thursday latest, I'm going to release the assignments. The assignments are not super long as far as typing a lot of code, but they're going to take some thought. I want to get them out to you, see how you do with them, and see how you're doing as far as absorbing sequences and absorbing loops. The first reminder, we are meeting next week on the 30th. So make sure you mark that down on your calendar. That will be a week from tomorrow. So make sure you're ready for that. I believe it'll be the same as last time. Just we'll start at 4 o'clock in the core auditorium, and we'll go until 5:30, 5:45. I mean, we'll let go in time for the analytics people to get to Livingston for their class, so no worries about that, okay? I had a little setback today because my Jeep refused to start this morning, so I was homebound and I had to do some different things to try and get my Jeep fixed. So Eric and I didn't get a chance to start looking at the programming assignments. I promise you, sometime this week we will. We'll get them done. I've already looked at a bunch of them, and it seems like everybody did a great job, so I wouldn't even be concerned about that. Worry about the Unit 2 slides, worry about sequences, and worry about loops. All right? Good. Then you have a good night, and I am out of here. I'll talk to you later.